Let us discuss the next concept, that is different types of database users. So in this case, we are going to classify the different types of users on the basis of how they are interact with the database. So mainly in this case, we are classifying the types of users as actors on the scene and workers behind the scene. Okay. So let us discuss one by one. First one is the actors on the scene. Okay. So again in the actors on the scene, we are classifying these users like a database administrator, database designers and end users. So next, what do you mean by actors on the scene? So we are classifying these users on the basis of, because on the basis they are using this database in day-to-day job. That's why these are called as the actors on the scene. And then what do you mean by workers behind the scene? So workers behind the scene means who work to maintain the database system environment, but they are not actively interested in the database content as a part of the daily job. So those users are known as the workers behind the scene. Okay. So actors on the scene means they are access the database in day-to-day job or day-to-day use. So the day-to-day use of large database, so we can call them as a actors on the scene. So first one is a database administrator. So these are the people or a team who use these resources. So there is a need for a chief administrator to overcome and manage all these resources. That person is known as, or that team is known as a database administrator. Okay. In the database environment, so as we know, the primary resource is the database itself only. Okay. What is our primary resources? Our primary resource is database. Okay. And what is our secondary resource? Our secondary resource is database, DBMS and its related software. So administrating these resources, primary resource and secondary resources, are the responsibilities of the database administrator. So in short, database administrators are termed as a DBA. So the main responsibility of a database administrator is authorizing the access of the database. So they must authorize the accessing of the database stored in the data stored in the database, and they must coordinate and monitoring the its use. Okay, and acquiring the software and hardware resources as requirement arises. They must. So what are the main functions of database administrator? The main functions of database administrators are authorizing the access, coordinating and monitoring its use, and acquiring the software and hardware resources as and when needed. Okay, and DBA is assisted by a staff. So there is no only single person, because if there is a one bank database, there is a one main person in the bank, that is manager. Bank manager is the main person. So he is going to be assisted by so many clerks in that bank. So in the same way, in the database also there is a one administrator is there. He is called as a database administrator, and he is having a one staff that assisted by a staff that carries all these instructions. So this is the main task of database administrator. This is an important concept for your examination. The question may arise like, explain a types of actors on the scene and who are the actors on the scene. Okay, in that case you have to explain about the actors on the scene concept, and after that the types of actors on the scene. Okay, and next one is a database designer. So as the name itself suggests, that database designers are the responsible for identifying the data to be stored and choosing an appropriate way to organize it. So what the data we want to store, what the data has to be stored in the database, and which data has to be choose to, or in which manner we have to store in, or in which manner we have to organize the data in the data to be stored in the database, that is going to be decided by the database designer. Okay, got the point? Database designers are responsible for identifying the data to be stored and choosing the appropriate way to organize it. Okay, they also define the views of different categories of the users. So views means, if there is a whole one bank database is there, so in that case a particular account holder is only have access to see the account balance of his. Okay, he cannot he is not authorized to see all the account information. Okay, so in that case the database designer must provide a particular view to a particular account holder. That is the main responsibility of a database designer. Okay, and after that the database final decision must be able to support the requirements of all user and subgroups. What are the requirements of users or organization that must be finalized by the database designer. So got the point? Who are the database administrator? What are the responsibilities of the database administrator? And what are the database responsibilities of the database designer? In short, we can say that the main responsibility of a database administrator is authorizing access to the database, coordinating and monitoring its use, and acquiring the software and hardware resources as and when need arises. That is the main responsibility of a database administrator. And next one is a database designer. Okay, and the main responsibility of a database designer is identifying the data to be stored and for choosing the appropriate way to organize the data to be stored in the database. That is the main responsibility of the database user. And third one is the end users. So end users means what? Here the end users are the people who choose whose job requires access to the database for querying. For example, account holder is a end user. Okay, so in that case, the main job of account holder is querying, updating, and generating the report. These are the main jobs of a end users. Those are done by a end users. Okay, in this case, the database primarily exists for their use because end users are the main users who want to access the data stored in the database. That's why we can say that database primarily exists for the end users. Okay. So here in end users are going to be we are going to categorize the end user. Let us say end users. Let us see what are the categories of or what are the types of end users. Okay. See here I am displaying the some information about the database administrators. Okay, and see here again database administrators are also monitors the recovery and backup provided by the technical supports. They must monitor the recovery and the backup when the system crash occurs. Okay, this is also a DBA responsibility. And DBA has an account in the DBMS. So the DBMS database administrator must also has his account to authorize the data stored, authorize the access. Okay, that account is called as a super user account. DBA ಕೂಡ ಈಗ DBA account ಗೆ ಏನಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ DBA super that account is called as super user account. Okay, so if any hardware or software failure occurs, that damage repairs must be done by a database administrator. Okay, as I told again, database designers. So these are the designers who design the structure of the database, like which includes tables, indexes, views, constraints, triggers, and stored procedures. And they are going to control what data must be stored and how data must be stored in the database. Okay, and next one is the end users. As I told, the end users are the people whose job requires access to the database for querying, updating, and generating the reports. Those are called as the end users. And as I told, the primarily the databases exist for the use. So see the categories of end users. The first one is the casual users. Then which users are called as a casual users? Let us see. So the users are called as a casual users, like who access the database occasionally. Occasionally ಯಾರು ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್ನ ಎಕ್ಸೆಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೋ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಏನಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಕ್ಯಾಶುವಲ್ ಯೂಸರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಬಟ್ they may need different information each time. Whenever they want to access the data stored in the database, they need different information each time. So that those type of users are called as a casual users. When they want some information stored in the database, they use some sophisticated database query language to specify their request. Like they use some middle level or high level languages, so like other occasional browsers to fetch the information or to retrieve the information stored in the database. So these are called as a casual users. Okay, so for example student university database is there, and student may come under a casual users. So we are not, the students are not going to regularly access the university database. They are just going to access the university database when the result is announced. Okay, or they are going to access the university database when they want to check the syllabus of a particular subject. So they want they are going to occasionally access the database of the access the university database. So in that case, we can call students comes under a casual users, or students are a casual users when we deal with the university database. Okay, so let us see the next one, or one more example. We can say that that is account holder. So account holder is not regularly access the bank database. They are going to check their, or they are going to use the bank database only to check their balance, or when they want to pay the money, or when some amount is credited to their account. In that case only they are going to use their account. Okay, and next one is the navy or parametric end users. Okay, so here we can say that who are navy or parametric users. So the users which constantly querying and updating the database, those are called as a navy or parametric end users. Then can you give me an example for navy or parametric end users? So the example for navy or parametric end users, like a bank clerks, or a reservation clerks, airline clerks, or hotels. So these are all example for a navy or parametric users, because these clerks are going to access the database regularly, because any transaction happen, they must update the bank database, or any reservation occurs, they has to reserve the, or reserve the seat for a particular passenger. So those are all come under the navy or parametric users. Okay, so this is again one of the important concept for your examination. This question may ask for again for 5 marks. Explain the types of end users with a suitable example. Okay, so this is a navy or parametric end users. See here, these are the examples. Okay, and next one is a sophisticated end users. So these are also known as a end users, because I will give some example for this sophisticated end users, like engineers, scientists, business analyst. So in this case, these all users are going to implement their own application to meet their requirements or complex needs. That these users are called as a sophisticated end users. Okay, so next one is standalone users. So as their name itself indicates that they are going to implement, or they are going to create a database for their personal use, those are called as a standalone users. For example, tax package that stores the variety of personal financial data for a tax purpose. Okay, so this is an example for standalone users. They are going to create their own database. So that means standalone end users. Okay, so we saw so many, there are five different types of end users. So in this case, typical DBMS provides multiple facilities to access the database. Like navy end users need to learn every little information about the facility provided by the DBMS. Okay, they simply have to understand the user interface of the standard transaction. Okay, and in this case, designed and implemented for their use. So the database which is designed and implemented for the navy users. Okay, and the casual users have to learn only few facilities that may use repeatedly. So ಯಾವ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಅಥವಾ ಯಾವ ಕ್ವೆರೀಸ್ ನ ರಿಪೀಟೆಡ್ಲಿ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಏನಾಗಿರಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ದೇ ಮಸ್ಟ್ ಬಿ ಅವೇರ್ ಆಫ್ the commands which are used to do the repeatedly the task. Okay, and the sophisticated users try to learn the most of the DBMS facilities in order to achieve their complex requirements, because engineers, scientists, business analysts have their own complex needs. That's why they must know all the facilities available by facilities available in the DBMS. And the last one is a standalone user. They must typically become a very proficient in using the specific software package, because they are going to use that database for personal use. That's why they must proficiently in using the database management system. So this is about the types of users. So it may ask for 10 marks, or it may also ask for 5 marks. If they ask for 5 marks, The question will be like explain worker actors on the scene, or for max they may ask explain workers behind the scene, and they may also ask explain the types of end users. Okay. So in the next class, we will discuss about workers behind the scene. Again, we are dividing the workers behind the scene as DBMS, DBMS system designers and implementers. And next one is the tool developers, and third one is the operators and maintenance personnel. So these are the different types of workers behind the scene. Okay, so if you have any doubts, you can ask.